Namanda, 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 Namanda. Hey, thank you. Welcome to our Shotsuki monthly memorial and adult Dharma service. And so this is just for those of you who are here for the first time, it's kind of a memorial service, and I'm going to read the names of those who've passed away in this month, but it's also a service that's open to anybody, so you don't have to be observing someone's memorial. So I would like to begin by reading the names of those who've passed away in the month of September. Satsuki Abe, Joe Deguchi, John Fujimoto, Nui Fujimoto, Hiroshi Fujiwara, Fumi Fukawa, Setsuko Furuta, Chieko Harada, Chiyoko Hiramoto, Takayo Tamura Hiramoto, Hatsumi Hirao, Tatsumi Hori, Harry Hoshi, Masuji Idehara, Suekichi Idehara, Kannoku Kada, Masaru Kanada, Masataro Kanesaki, Harry Katayama, Tomi Kisanuki, Nobuo Kitagaki, Mei Clevin, Komae Kobata, Sada Koizumi, Ruth Shigematsu Kosu, Toyo Kuwahara, Mitsu Matsui, Roland Matsui, Kumiko Matsumoto, Tazuko Matsushino, Alice Ayako Matsutani, James Messenzel, Alice Minamidani, Eizo Minamidani, Toshiro Minamoto, Toshio Mitsuda, Kenso Miura, Kameso Miyamoto, Aiko Mizuhara, Rei Mori, Tsuru Mori, Zenshiro Mori, Russell Muraoka, Harukichi Murakishi, Tsurukichi Nagafuji, Harumi Nagai, Tsuru Naito, John Nakagawa, Rowena Nakagawa, Magohei Nakagiri, Kengo Nakahara, Shiotaro Nakano, Kenichi Nakano, Kofuji Nakano, Yoshiko Nakao, Toyoko Nakao, Kikutaro Nakashima, Sandra Nakashima, Yoi Nakashima, Sanae Negi, Ito Nishimoto, Akio Noda, Fumiko Obayashi, Mary Fujie Ogawa, Elsie Ogata, Kai Oka, George Richard Okano, Danzaburo Okawa, Robert Oto, Kimie Ozawa, Kozo Sasaki, Ray Simon Robles, Kazuko Seiji, Reverend Shusei Shimada, Shigeru Shimamura, Miyoko Shimizu, Mitsuo Shintani, Alan Suehiro, Kazunori Tsunada, Kusutaro Tsunayama, Keoru Suto, Marsha Tagami, Kazuo Takahashi, Fumie Takashima, George Takashima, Sugi Takashima, Harue Tamura, Hanako Terakawa Tamura, Gihei Tanada, Matsue Tani, Mary Taniguchi, Hayano Toyofuku, Chio Tsuchiya, Muraku Tsuchiya, Tome Tsujimoto, Keoru Umeki, George Ushijima, Sadakichi Wada, Tomo Watanabe, Jerry Yamamoto, Johnny Yamamoto, Masaru Yamamoto, Sashichi Yamamoto, Shichiro Yokomizo, Shoji Cho Yoshida, George Yoshioka, Tadaichi Yoshioka. Okay, next we will have Sutra chanting. Today we're going to chant Juseige, and that is on page 23 in the small purple book. And the words will also be up on the screen. Namanda, 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 namanda. Agon cho segan, ishimu jodo, shigan fumanzok, seifu joshogak, gao munyoko, Fui dai session, Fusai shobing, Seifu joshogak, Gashi jobutsudo, Myosho chojippo, Kukyomi shomon, Seifu joshogak, Ryokujin shonen, Joe shibongyo, Shigumu jodo, Isho tenin shi, Jinniki and Daiko, Fushomu saido, Shoujo sankumyo, Kosai shuyakunan, Kaiichi egen, Meshi konmoan, Heisoku sho akudo, Tsudatsu zen shumon, Koso jomanzok, Iyoro jippo, Nichigatsu shujuki, Tenko onpugen, Ishikai hozo, Koseku dokuho, Jodai shichu, Seppo shishiku, Kuyo isai butsu, Gusoku shitoku hon, Gane shitsu joman, Tokui sangai o, Nyobutsu mugechi, Tsudatsu mi fusho, Gangaku erik, Toshi sai shoson, Shiganya koka, Daisen o kando, koku shoten ni to jimyo ke Namandame 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 Gani Shikedoku Byodo Seisai Dohoten Modaishin Ojo Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo Amida. Hey, thank you. I didn't tell Robert this, but let's do the three treasures and I can share my screen. So it's on page 3 in the small purple book, if you want to look at it there, or you can follow along on the screen, but let me share it. The three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life, now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma, now we hear it. If we do not deliver ourselves in the present life, no hope is there that we shall be freed from suffering and sorrow in the ocean of birth and death. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in Buddha. May we all together absorb into ourselves the principle of your way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves your supreme will. I take refuge in Dharma. May we all together be submerged in the depth of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May we all together become units in true accord, in your life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Okay, thank you once again for joining us. I thought I'd talk a little bit more about happiness because it's an interesting idea. I think it's something that many people aspire to, right? To be happy. And yet it might be kind of a contested topic in Buddhism. Right? One thing we must know, there are many, many, many different kinds of Buddhism, not just one, right? It's kind of like Christianity in that sense, or any religion, right? There's not just one kind of Christianity, right? You got Catholicism, Protestant, Seventh-day Adventist, I mean, you know, and which fall under which category. Same for Buddhism, right? That there are three main schools, a Theravada, which is kind of like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, and others, right? Mahayana Buddhism, which is what we are, China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, but then also esoteric Buddhism, tantric Buddhism, like Shingon in Japan, or Tibetan Buddhism is very much tantric. And so, those are like these kind of major divisions. But then I think each country's Buddhism has its own flavor. And even within each country, there may be different schools. Even within a school, there may be different branches. There's, all of these different kinds of Buddhism. So we can talk generally in some ways, but also be careful to grasp onto, but I thought Buddhism was this, right? That different Buddhists may understand things differently. So, happiness for Buddhism, maybe we're kind of used to it because of that book by the Dalai Lama, The Art of Happiness, right? That I think understanding of Buddhism is more nuanced now than maybe 25 years ago or 50 years ago. But at the same time, it's only the 80s, about 40 years ago, that the Pope at the time, I think it was Pope John Paul II, put out an, what is it called, an encyclical or something, this book about Catholicism and the world. And the book says, Buddhism is a pessimistic religion, so you shouldn't follow it. They're missing all kinds of stuff. It's wrong, right? But the key here being that Buddhism as pessimistic, negative, right? Dour, right? Maybe even emotionless, right? That we get these, I don't know that you hear it so much now, but I think we do have that idea is out in the air, kind of. And I think a lot of it comes from the first noble truth. Life is suffering, right? The first noble truth of the Four Noble Truths is life is suffering. And I think that's what the whoever wrote the Pope's thing probably looked up Buddhism. They didn't have Wikipedia back then or Google, right? But he could look up a book and he's like, okay, I got to encapsulate Buddhism. Life is suffering. This is pessimistic. Buddhism is pessimistic. It's like, it's only one of four, right? That actually Buddhism says to move beyond suffering. That suffering isn't the whole story. And so we do have a more nuanced view of happiness in Buddhism than just that. But here's the thing. What do you mean happy? Right? What do you mean by happiness? That's a question we have to ask, right? And Buddhism, I think, acknowledges different kinds of happiness. And so the happiness that maybe gets negated or that we want to try to go beyond is just a happiness of trying to chase after pleasure, right? A happiness of seeking after happiness, feeling like I'm not happy. How can I be happy? Oh, if I buy that, then I'll be happy, right? And so if I can buy that, then I'll get this happiness. The problem with that is that it's a happiness of like seeking after transient things, right? Seeking after things that one of the basic teachings of Buddhism is impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. No created thing lasts forever. So if you want to have, like, maybe you look at this TV, I have a relatively big TV, but it's not that big, right? And so if I think, oh man, I saw that TV there, I want one of those, then I'll be happy, right? That if that's how you're trying to get happiness through things, there's going to be a bigger TV, right? Or maybe TV won't even be the thing anymore. Then I'll want something else. Right? Or iPhone is the best example, right? That you get a new iPhone and you think, oh my gosh, yeah, man, I've got the iPhone, whatever, 7 or something, and I want iPhone 58. The new 58 is going to be the best, and then I'll be happy, right? And as soon as you get it, you're like, it's not that different, right? This was going to change my life. Wait, 59's coming out, right? That it never lasts, right? It's so that kind of happiness isn't true, lasting happiness. Another problem with that kind of happiness, I think, is that it's dualistic, right? It's saying, oh, I'm not happy. I want to be happy, right? That this kind of dualistic thing of happy and not happy. Or how about sad and happy, or happy and sad, happy and mad, right? We can take happiness and put it against other ways of feeling, right? Other ways of being. And if it's a dualistic kind of thing, then in Buddhism, like true reality is non-dualistic. So if we're in this kind of dualistic state of this or that, good or bad, happy or sad, then it's maybe that's not the kind of happiness to seek after. But Buddhism also realizes that that's not the only kind of happiness. And so I think that another kind of happiness would be in other kinds of, see, we don't meditate. That's another thing about our kind of Buddhism. Meditation is not our practice. You can meditate, but that's not the way to happiness for us. That's not the way to nirvana for us, right? And yet meditation can bring about pleasant sensations, right? Escape from the world, meditate, and maybe you can even have pleasurable sensations of, dopamine or whatever being released into your body, that meditation can bring about a kind of happiness. But the problem is, another thing is attachment, right? I've kind of been hinting at that. If you get attached to that state, right? Oh, I was meditating and it felt so good, but now I have to go back to work. And so I want to meditate again. So once again, this not happy, right? Seeking outwardly for happiness, right? And grasping, attachment, desire. That's actually one of the three poisons, right? This attachment or desire. And so, and then that's where sometimes you get into this thing, well, Buddha says desire is bad, but if you're desiring nirvana, then isn't that bad? Right. And sometimes we try to put it together of that Buddha said, that happy is this kind of opposite of sad. So maybe we're not supposed to be that. And so sometimes those are good kind of critiques, right, that we should be aware of, but also don't attach to those either. Right? That maybe it is a different kind of happiness. Maybe there are different kinds of desire. Desiring things, being attached to objects, or even being attached to people, maybe that can bring about negative states. But having a desire for peace, right? Having a desire to relieve the suffering of others, if it becomes unhealthy, sure, we can look at that as a negative desire. But I think that Buddhism is more nuanced than that. As soon as you say one thing, Buddhism is against this, or in Buddhism, you shouldn't be like that, then we start attaching again, right? And so there's this kind of Buddhist thing of trying to be aware of when we are attaching, right? Be aware of, am I really right here? So those are two kinds of happiness, though, huh? There's the happiness of seeking and chasing after and trying to get something, this happiness, right? But based on transient things, right? Actually delivering suffering or dissatisfaction. Then there are these kind of positive mental states that other schools teach, right? Of meditation or whatever. And then I would say there's the big happiness. Which maybe happiness isn't the right word. And you hear me talk about this actually at funerals and obon, which we just had. Joy, kangi, right? There is a kind of happiness that joy, but actually maybe joy and gratitude. And that this joy is this bigger happiness, right? This bigger, deeper happiness that's more in accord with the way that things are. So, I'm going to conclude with this. Well, I'm going to conclude the happiness part with this. How I've been saying life is suffering, right? And that thing that results in that kind of misunderstanding. So life is suffering, dukkha. That's the term, dukkha. Okay? And that this dukkha is this kind of dissatisfaction. We use the term suffering, but it could also be dis-ease, right? This kind of unsettled feeling. And there's actually the opposite of dukkha. There's another term, sukha. And so we don't say it that much here, but Amita's Pure Land is sukhavati, the land of bliss. In the echo, when we did Ganishi Kudoku Byodo Seisai Do Hoten Bodaishin Ojo Anakok, or Ojo Anakok, to be born in the land of peace and bliss, the land of happiness, Amida Buddha's land. right? So, or Gokuraku, ultimate bliss. So actually nirvana is expressed as bliss, happiness, but true happiness is happiness that's beyond happy or sad, right? Beyond dualities. And so that's the state that Shakyamuni Buddha achieved, this nirvana, right? We hear this term nirvana. Part of it is enlightenment, awakening, but part of it is this bliss, this happiness. Now, in the first talk, the Dharma school talk, right? We had the happy, happy, happy. When I'm at school, I'm happy, 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 happy. Amida Buddha is with me, right? The Amida Buddha is with me. And so part of that, I think, is feeling like, wow, right? That when we encounter the Dharma, we encounter this teaching of Nembutsu that embraces me as I am, right? That I can be happy any place. Right? That this happiness maybe is something that can come out, even though usually grumpy at work, right? Or dopey at school or sleepy at church, right? But what I like about Jodo Shinshu is it does acknowledge that other side too, right? It does leave room for when I'm not happy, right? That Jodo Shinshu allows us to be ourselves, to feel what we're feeling. Right? To not, there's not this expectation that I'm always going to be happy. And so partly why I felt like this is an appropriate topic is because this is a memorial service too. Right? And this Shotsuki is the Shotsuki Hoyo is this service when we can think about our loved ones who've passed away. And what I like about Buddhism and Jodo Shinshu especially is that it allows me to feel what I'm feeling, right? And so for some people, losing a loved one, and there's all different kinds of circumstances, right? It's your relationship, it's how old they were, how they passed, all these different things, right? And so we may feel sad. We may feel grief, right? We may feel, actually, you know, when my father passed, I felt nothing, right? I didn't feel sad or happy. I just had this kind of blank void inside myself. I couldn't feel. And I think it was because deep down underneath, I think there was great grief, right? Great loss. And this, my dad passed away, what, 22 years ago? And so it's been a long time. But I know for even when I came here, what, about 3 years after becoming a minister and after he passed? No, I came here 3 years after being a minister, but that was 6, 7, 8, 9, like 8 or 9 years after he passed. And I remember still feeling like that, right? Still years later, still not able to feel anything, right? At the loss of my father. That was me, right? It's okay if you feel that way. And I remember reading a book by Kubler-Ross, right, who has the 5 stages of grieving, right? But I just picked up the book because I was like, why don't I feel anything? And I read the book, and she said, it's okay. Everyone feels differently, right? Everyone has their own experiences. Everyone goes through grief differently, right? There's no proper way to grieve. What I love about the Shotsuki service is we revisit this again and again and again. Every year, right? We revisit this person who we've lost. But what I realized too is that at some point, my dad started popping up in my head again, right? I started being able to think about him. And by that point, they were good feelings. And it was actually appreciation and gratitude that I began feeling. Right? Beginning to realize how much he did for me, right? Beginning to realize how, I mean, I knew in a way, but this is a deeper realization, right? Beginning to realize how many memories I had, how much he's a part of me, right? And so again, this service, and the other thing about this service, some of the people on the list, maybe they passed away last year. Right? Maybe they passed away 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Maybe they passed away 50 years ago, 100 years ago, right? That's what's so great about this list. It's this running list of everyone at this temple. This temple is only, what, 123 years old, right? And so, you know, we could go back even further, but it's still pretty amazing to read that list out. And I know for those of you, when you hear a name, because I hear you tell me, right? Sometimes I say the name and boom, just stuff starts popping up, right? Not even thoughts necessarily, even smells, huh? Like I say the name and a smell comes into your mind because they cooked, right? That was their thing. And so this kind of remembering, right? Paying tribute, but also feeling, right? That these services allow us to experience these feelings together. Right? They allow us to revisit these feelings. They allow us to see how these feelings change over time, right? That my feelings have changed over time for both my parents. And the time does change things. And I think that even though we may still harbor some of that sadness, right? Even 20 years later, maybe even 50 years later. Right? And yet there's more than just that. So I like to say that joy and gratitude, that kangi, right? The sukha is bigger, it's deeper than just happy or sad. It embraces all of them, right? That all those feelings are part of who I am. And in Jodo Shinshu, it's okay to feel them. We don't have to lock them away or be like, these feelings are good, these are bad, right? No, we can feel whatever we feel. So it's really, really special opportunity for us with this Shotsuki Hoyo. Shotsuki, and I've said this before, I'm not a native Japanese speaker, and actually I used to sit here in the seat that Reverend Endo was in this morning. He sat next to me. I used to sit there when someone who's in the room used to sit in what's my seat now. And I did my internship here, like, how long ago was it? 1999, 2000, right? Almost 25 years ago. I was a student here, right? And I thought Shotsuki meant Shotsuki. Sho, like hajimete, beginning, first. Tsuki means month, because it was always on the first Sunday of the month. So I thought it meant first Sunday, like first weekend or something. And then I found out, no, it's Shotsuki. The sho means auspicious. It's a good thing. It's this marvelous month, right? It's recognized. And so you think, wait, isn't it a memorial? But that's part of Buddhism. Don't grasp onto what that means, to realize, wow, maybe a memorial is different than I thought, right? Maybe a memorial, as much as it has sadness, there's more than that. Right? And maybe we can come to see that, wow, this is an auspicious month, the month that this person passed away. What a different way to think about it, right? Because then we're tying into something bigger, right? Bigger than just feelings of sadness or whatever. And realizing, wow, and the last thing I'll say, that they're still with us. Not as we knew before, but still with us, whether as a part of you or part of your life, right? And even those memories popping up are precious things. So thank you so much for joining us. We got about 10 minutes before our welcome back luncheon. And so you're please welcome to join us for that. But why don't we conclude with Gassho and conclude our Dharma message. Many different kinds of happiness, many different emotions. On this occasion of our Shotsuki monthly memorial, let us be open and aware of the emotions that we feel as we're embraced by the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Namanda. Okay, should we have Gatha, or should we have announcements? I think everyone was here. So let's do Gatha Ondok-san 2. Oh, it's going to be on the screen, or it's in the small purple book, page 76. Or you might know it by memory. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, thank you. Why don't we conclude our Shotsuki monthly memorial? And again, please join us downstairs. Grab your kids if they're here, and then we'll be having udon, welcome back lunch, and we got pie, so you gotta stay.